Love how we didn't even discuss how we're gonna start this or anything. It was just, I wanted to go into much more of a organized stat kind of idea, but I guess that's not how we're gonna do it. So I hear you. Yeah, I'm all here for that. So the stream started. Yeah, we are. Welcome to anybody joining in. This is the Fantasy Football and Chill podcast with the four of us that could show up at this moment in time. Alex might be joining us later. I'm gonna let Dakota introduce himself since he is a new face. Oh yeah. So we're gonna kind of recap what's kind of gone on since Tuesday, especially kind of emphasizing on what's happened today on Sunday. So we'll start off. I'll let Jason kind of talk about what happened on Thursday night since that was such an oh so eventful game. The Falcons and Panthers. Yeah. Yeah. To kind of summarize that game, the Panthers outran the Falcons, which is the entire Falcons scheme. I think the top performer was Deontay Foreman, who had 19 fantasy points. He had over 100 yards and a touchdown rushing. DJ Moore had a pitiful show. He had, I think, 6.9 points on 3 receptions for 39 yards. And then we had Drake London, who had 14.8 off of a nice high ball touchdown that Marcus Mariota was actually able to throw to him. But if anybody else watched that Thursday night game, they would know that it was the Marcus Mariota fucking prayer fest. I don't know. If you Jay, you might have seen a highlight of this where Marcus Mariota was on his way to the ground and he just threw the ball up and it got picked. It's He didn't miss much, but Marcus Mariota, yeah, Marcus made, I think, hands down the worst reads as a starting quarterback that has ever been done. It was amazing. Like you thought Russell Wilson got traded over to the Falcons with how many prayers were thrown over that way. I need to look at the depth chart for that team because I just don't know. Desmond Ritter. I forgot that man's on that team. Sam Darnold should be coming back soon, so I think they're going to go back to believing in the guy who sees ghosts and hoping that he can start dicing up defenses in the future. 20, yeah, was that 2018 with Baker? Yeah, I mean, what, only like two quarterbacks out of that were good? Yeah, what was it, Allen and yeah. No, those yeah, that was Thursday night. We'll talk a little bit. We actually we're not gonna talk anymore about the Panthers and the Falcons. Let's talk. Yeah, I think we should talk first and foremost about the morning game, the game that happened in Germany. There's a couple of things to take away from the Bucks and the Seahawks game. No, not on that pass. Nor will Tom Brady ever. Yeah, Tom Brady will not be a receiver. Uh, we're gonna talk about the fact that Leonard is injured. He had a hip injury at the end, like towards the latter end of that game, and Tampa was actually able to run the football, which was kind of a weird thing to see since they are the worst, I think, rushing team that ever has existed. Yeah, he had like 23, 24 carries for 105. No, I don't think so. Yeah, he had a but Leonard had a touchdown, Chris Godwin had a touchdown, and Julio had a touchdown. He'll come into that notion. I think it's just they were trying so hard to develop a run game today that like they weren't even trying to find him out of the backfield. Yeah. Yeah, Russell Gage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just looking at the Seattle roster, Seattle schedule quickly, their very first win of the year was against the
it's pretty rare that a player gets hired as a head coach, especially with no coaching experience. And he got his first win today. I mean, it was against the Raiders. Still, a win's a win in the NFL. It's never going to be easy.
Cool.
I think he stepped up to the plate as much as you can deliver. I think him starting Matt Ryan over Sam Ehlinger was a bold play, especially with that. I don't know if you guys are aware with like what's going on with Matt Ryan and the guarantees with his contracts and stuff like that. But
yeah, a lot of shit.
They're guaranteeing him a lot of money if he does get injured, if he's injured during March of like this upcoming year. And so they were willing to not risk that because they didn't want to guarantee an extra $7 million of his contract. And so with him, he kind of had this win first mentality that he brought. And obviously it's not like he's bringing any massive change to the offensive and defensive mindsets, but I feel like him putting in the right piece right there was a massive play. Sam Ehlinger definitely wouldn't have led him to that win. And Jonathan Taylor finally looked like a good running back, which he hasn't looked like since week 1.
Yeah.
So I think that pass option that Matt Ryan has opened up has allowed their actual blocking to establish, and it's like opened up a good offensive scheme for them.
Yeah, they have a solid offense. I mean, you have arguably the best running back in the NFL. I mean, we're 1 year removed from Jonathan Taylor. He won Offensive Player of the Year, or no, it was Cup. Last year, but it was Cup, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was runner-up, and I believe he was also, I want to say, top 3 for MVP votes behind Rodgers and Brady. So you have an elite running back. You have a very, very good offensive line, starting with Quentin Nelson. Michael Pittman, I don't think he's like an elite receiver, but he's a top 15 to 20 guy. He's a number one. He's a true number one. And you have other guys in there like Paris Campbell. So they have weapons. Maybe they're lacking a little bit of depth, but I don't think that offense should not be as bad as it's been this year. It should still be like a top 15 offense.
I think on the flip side of that, it's amazing to me how the Raiders somehow managed to lose every game that they could possibly win this year. It's like they're completely against winning games. I don't know what their strategy is, but like it feels like games where they actually involve Josh Jacobs like today are games that they usually come away with, but it's like they get so close to winning and then they blow leads, and it's like I don't know what recipe like they need to be looking for, but like letting Matt Ryan dice you up in his first game back in like a couple weeks is never a good look. So obviously you should start on the defensive side of the ball, but it seems that their offense is so inconsistent. It feels like Devontae shows up for 1 game, 2 games every 4 weeks, and then he goes back to getting 1 catch for 2 yards, and then it's just like a rinse repeat.
Yeah, to be fair though, he did go off today. He had like 150 and 10 catches.
Yeah, no, and
I do know what you mean. Like 2 weeks ago, he had like 1 catch for 3 yards.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, but this was one of the first weeks where you got Josh Jacobs going over like 100 yards and Devontae going over 100 yards come at the same time. Then they only put up 20 points and they still lost.
Right.
And it's just like
their run game is atrocious.
That's the issue. Yes, Josh Jacobs may have had 100+ yards, all scrimmage yards, but he had 78 yards running the ball on 21 carries. He had 3.7. Now, yes, I understand you run that 3 times and all of a sudden, yeah, you're getting a first down. But you can't do that in this league.
Yeah.
It's too easy. That I think that their offensive line is probably the problem on offense because they have to throw the ball in order to get these first downs because they can't do anything in the run game right now.
You know, it's interesting in the offseason, there's a lot of hype around the Raiders because I know they brought in Devontae, Chandler Jones. They brought in a few other guys, right? I know they were trying to get Gilmore. That didn't happen. He went to Indy. But they were making moves. And I think something that some experts were pointing out that a lot of casual fans are kind of missing is that offensive line is like a bottom 3 offensive line. And you still have Derek Carr at quarterback. You don't have an Aaron Rodgers or Josh Allen or Mahomes, you know. And I don't know. I didn't really see the Raiders going anywhere. I was thinking maybe like a 500 team, maybe a wild card team. But they are playing a lot worse than I think any of us anticipated.
They also have no future.
That too. They have no money, no draft picks. I mean, they have draft picks, but they don't draft well. So.
No, they draft awful. They're losing all 5 guys of like their last 5 first-round picks that are going to leave because Josh Jacobs didn't take his 5th-year option.
No, he didn't get offered his 5th-year option.
Right. So so he's done. He's gone.
They
you
might
change
the contract on that, how well he's been playing.
Right, but okay, but I bet you he's going to be looking for some money that all of a sudden he's going to go to a team with an offensive line and he's going to show up and show out and become a number 1 running back in the league. And he's going to be competing every day and he's going to be probably one of the best fantasy running backs. Yeah. Because the minute you give him an offensive line, you can equate him and he can be equivalent to Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, all them. I know it's a hot take.
That is a hot take.
But
that's a hot take. I will say he was pretty damn good coming out of Bama, and he was. I think clearly the number 1 back in that class. I don't know if he's lived up to that though. I would say, if you gave him an offensive line of like Philadelphia, you know, they probably have like the best line in the league right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd probably be a clear top 5 back. But I mean, I don't know if I put him on the same level as like Henry and Taylor, or you said Saquon and Taylor, right?
Yeah.
But it's tough to say because we don't know, you know, because he's right.
Correct.
He does have the talent.
That's exactly
that's my personal prediction is that if you give him an offensive line, he's gonna show out and he's gonna become unbelievable.
You know,
looking at his stats this year,
you might be right.
He has 138 attempts, which is 6th in the league right now. He has 743 yards, which is 4th. 6 touchdowns, which right now is tied for 5th. And he's averaging 5.4, which is 15th.
Hey,
he's a top 10 back.
Yeah.
Game on?
DeAndre Carter.
Yeah.
Oh, son of a bitch.
No, I don't know.
It was DeAndre Carter.
30-something yard pass.
From Justin
25 yards. Yeah, that drive looked really good for the Chargers.
I wouldn't know. I was literally watching it off of Dakota's screen. So
they went to
Austin, you want to cover the Bears game?
Yeah, I'll cover the Bears game with full honor. So what happened with the Bears? So this gentleman right here, Justin Fields, he showed up and showed out. The man ran for 140 yards, scored 2 rushing touchdowns. He threw for 5 total touchdowns. Now, only 4 of them are going to show up on the stat sheet. The other one was donated to Okuda for a pick 6. But
former teammate.
Yeah, former Ohio State teammate. But the Bears ran the ball extremely well, as to be expected. Amon-Ra had a great game. He caught for 10-plus catches for 100 yards. I think it was 114.
I thought he won like 150 almost. Maybe I'm wrong. 114?
He was 119. Amon-Ra was 119.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was it 11 or was it 10 for
10?
And then he
10.
ran for 5 yards on a rush, didn't
he? 2 yards.
2 yards. Okay. He had a great game. Jared Goff didn't have the kind of game I was anticipating. I thought it was going to be a little more they were going to kind of dice up the runs. They were going to anticipate that. And so he was going to be able to drop it off to a bunch of no-name tight ends or maybe a Monra for a touchdown. But it just seemed like the game plan for Detroit was stick around and let Chicago make mistakes. And that it did happen. Justin played a phenomenal game. Just one bad throw and a trip by Okudah that costed Cole Kmet another touchdown that should have happened in the fourth quarter. Ended up costing that game. But Cole Kmet also had a great game, 23 points. He had 2 touchdowns I think he had like 74 yards.
4 receptions, 74 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. He had one hell of a game. And it just seemed like whenever Justin had to roll out of the pocket in goal line or when he was looking on a deep shot, Cole Kmet was the guy to find today. Darnell Mooney had a normal Darnell Mooney game, which was like 4 or 5 receptions for about 50 yards. And so it was just, that game was a heart-wrencher as a Bears fan to watch your team be up, look like they had everything to lead the game, and then to watch that all collapse right in your face was kind of disappointing. But Justin Fields continues to show that he is going to be a top 3, if not a top 1 fantasy quarterback by the end of this year. And
I was making sure you were going to say fantasy.
Yeah. No, he's not going to be a top.
Hey,
he's going to be a top 10 quarterback by the end of this year if he keeps playing like he does. But the defense of Chicago is continuing to look like the worst in football as well.
I'll give you a fun stat that I saw earlier, that it's the first time in 150 times or whatever you want to call it that the Detroit Lions have come back down by 14 points plus in the fourth quarter.
Wow.
Only to the Bears.
Back in the
Bears.
Yeah. So
if you aren't aware, the NFC North is just stacked with great teams. And with that being said, I'm going to throw a little oop to Dak, and Dak can take the nice little Bills Vikings game. And
so we all know what happened.
no,
Most people should.
What's happened in that game? Because there's a lot that happened in that game.
Game of the year.
It was wow. I really don't know how to sum it up, but I'm just going to get it straight into my hot take because this is going to get some people going. I don't think, and now people are going to blame Josh Allen's injury for this game, that he wasn't himself. He didn't look good. He looked okay. But if you go back the last couple games, Josh Allen this season is now on a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Yes, he may be the top fantasy quarterback, but I don't know if Josh Allen, I don't know what has happened, but he is not seeing things right. And I think that he is probably, and it's looking like it, he's going to go downhill. I don't know why. I love Josh Allen. I have him on 2 of my fantasy teams as my quarterback. But this dude has 20 touchdowns and now 10 interceptions in the games. He has, I'm going to pull it up so I can read it off correctly so I'm not wrong. But he threw 2 interceptions.
The stats for the year, Dak?
Yeah.
20 to 10?
Yes.
Wow, I did not know that because
he threw 2 interceptions today and had one, and then he also fumbled on the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you're out there trucking guys, and you're all of a sudden you decide to fumble on the 1. Like,
Doesn't he have 4 red zone interceptions the last 2 games?
Yeah, one of his interceptions was on a 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
Where he should never have thrown the ball. There were 3 guys around the receiver that he was trying to get it to. Last game, he had 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. Game before that, 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. Game before that, yes, versus Kansas City, he had 3 touchdowns. But the first game of the year, he had
Dak
2 interceptions. He keeps putting up interceptions in numbers.
Dak against the Jets, he ran for a couple touchdowns.
Right. Okay. I'm talking about passing.
Okay. I was gonna say I don't know why it's not including this, but I literally watched against the Jets. I'm pretty sure he ran in for.
He's run for multiple touchdowns. He's a great runner.
Yeah, he is.
But passing the ball right.
And 10 interceptions in total.
When you say that he's going to go downhill, are you referring to fantasy or real life or both?
I think fantasy.
Okay. What about real
He
life?
should, he's still going to be a top quarterback.
Yeah.
I think the issue is now is all of a sudden the realization is setting in is that they have back-to-back losses against the Jets, and I think a Minnesota team that they should have beaten. Look, the Bills were the pick to win the Super Bowl this year. They're always
by
up there.
landslide. Not even close.
Yeah.
But he's going in the wrong direction right now. He keeps making stupid mistakes that don't need to be made, and something needs to happen with him. And I think that he right now is just fantasy wise is not trending in the right direction.
Hey, you mind if I speak on this one a little bit?
Absolutely, because it's a hot take.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm a big Josh Allen guy, and I think if we're talking about pure talent and ability, he might be like the freakiest, most talented quarterback we've ever seen. Just in terms of his size, his athletic ability, he has maybe the strongest arm we've ever seen. But I think a problem with him, and it's happened with a lot of other guys, is that in order to play quarterback, you also need to have the intangibles and you need to have the mental side, you know? So a lot of guys are talented, but they don't have like what Brady has or Rodgers or Breeze with the processing and being able to go through reads and doing pre-snap adjustments. You get the point. Josh Allen to me is Brett Favre. Anyone agree with that? And I think that's a compliment, but it's also not a great thing because I feel like he makes like kind of like what you were saying, Dak. He's an elite quarterback, but he makes 1 to 2 boneheaded mistakes a game that cost him games. It sometimes costs him games. I mean, you look at a few weeks ago, they were playing on primetime against Green Bay, and that game was over, but he made 2 stupid interceptions, one at the goal line, just because he was like forcing passes. I don't know if he was trying to stat pad or what he was doing. And it almost let Green Bay come back and have a shot to tie up the game.
Right, which is where I'm like something must be going on wrong. Now, yes, today could have been the injury, but the dude was still running with full force, plowing into people, so it must have not been the injury. It must have been completely fine.
I'd say he's fully healthy. I mean, they wouldn't have started him if there was something wrong.
Right.
Yeah,
so why all of a sudden is he making these stupid mistakes?
Yeah.
Why now?
Yeah.
Is our defensive starting to figure him out?
I'd say the Bills' defense was a little weak today too. I mean,
right, correct. And I'm not focused on the Bills' defense at all.
Yeah, no.
They were going up against Justin Jefferson, who is just a freak.
Yeah.
The catch he made today was stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Josh Allen is. Everybody's like, oh, he's Josh Allen. Dude, why is he starting to now throw picks and make stupid mistakes? Our defenses, I think defenses are starting to figure him out.
Give me 1 sec.
Do you remember? Yeah, go ahead, Austin.
Because somebody commented into our chat before, so I'm going to address that, and then we'll hop right back into what we were saying. Okay. Luka Magic said, down 30 with Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown left, and he has Gibson, half PPR. Do I have a chance? So,
who does he have?
He has Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown, and he's versing Antonio Gibson, and he's down 30. And this is half PPR.
Yes.
Absolutely. Hold up. Wait, hey. This is half PPR. I
doesn't
understand.
Matter. You have A.J. Brown and one of the best tight ends in fantasy. A.J. Brown will probably put up, I mean, if he has a good day, 20. And then Dallas Goedert, I think, will get at least half PPR, maybe 8 to 10.
So that's 30 flat. And he has Antonio Gibson. Yeah, you have to realize, like...
Oh, okay.
But you're going up against the Philly defense right now.
I get that, and Antonio Gibson is taking less role than Brian Robinson. But my point I'm getting to is, like, if this was a full PPR, I would say yes, 100%. A.J. Brown's going to... It depends on how much of a boom game A.J. Brown has. Yeah. And if Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown are the main priorities, or if Philly approaches this with the mentality that they're going to run the ball more dominantly today. And so,
I'd say you got a 30 to 35% chance of winning.
Yeah, you're probably not favored, but you have a chance to make that happen. And so
Yeah, I'd
it's
say 70%.
70.
Yeah.
70% chance of
If it was
winning.
full PPR, I'd say that you'd have a really good shot, but that's
Yeah.
kind of dicey half PPR.
But going right back to what we were talking about earlier, to answer Dak's question or to answer the question that I felt like was being thrown around about, is Josh Allen, I feel like, has always solely relied on his arm talent and his ability to run through defenders. So I don't think that's anything new. I think the issue at hand is the fact that the clutch factor that it seems that he usually has is dissolving. It seems that he's making stupid plays at the wrong time. It seems that, like, you could say his luck has finally come to an end. It's like,
I agree.
you can't, like, I don't have an issue with a 6'4", 250 dude running around like he owns the place until he gets cracked. But until then, he's just going to run around like his head's cut off. So do whatever you want, Josh. Just make sure that concussions, you actually stay out for the rest of the game, not like Tua. But if you're going to, like, in order for Josh to be the true quarterback that he should be able to, he needs to take more of like a Peyton Manning approach, where you have the arm talent, but you have to study the film. He has to be able to start deciphering defenses and not relying on talent.
Pocket quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to be a sole pocket quarterback. I
No, I'm
disagree
saying
with that.
more.
I don't agree with that. I think he just needs to not try to make plays out of everything. Like
He's trying to be like Patrick Mahomes.
exactly.
Patrick Mahomes
Yeah.
is Patrick Mahomes.
But Patrick Mahomes
Nobody-
also
Josh Allen has the same ability.
they have
Yes, but
they
he's
have the
the
abilities. It's just
Yeah, so
It's just Patrick
Go ahead,
Mahomes
Austin.
actually knows how to dice up defenses
Right.
with more intellect. Josh Allen, it just seems like he relies again solely on his talent. He doesn't read what's going on in front of him like Patrick does. He doesn't have
Okay.
that sense that Patrick does.
hey, Austin, question for you.
What's up?
Because I know you know a lot about the Vic Fangio scheme. Did you know that Minnesota runs that same scheme, the quarter scheme? I'm almost positive.
I am not aware of that.
Okay, so do you guys? I'll go back to that in a second. Do you guys remember last year what happened at the beginning of the year? Kansas City's offense was terrible. They started off like 3-4, 3-5.
yeah,
Anyway,
so.
okay. So I'm not saying that that's happening in Buffalo, but a lot of these like defensive coordinators were running this. It's called a quarters scheme, and it's like it was implemented first by Vic Fangio. Austin knows a lot about that. That was like that elite Bears defense a few years ago, and it's like pretty much like a soft coverage scheme where you're going to let up all the short stuff and you're going to give them the easy runs. Buffalo's problem that I see is what Kansas City had last year, is that Kansas City wanted to take shots to Hardman and Hill, and defense they were preventing that. And now, what Kansas City does now is they're hitting a bunch of like the short passes, they're hitting out routes, they're hitting seam routes, and they're running more. And I think Buffalo is having that same issue. They're trying to take shots to Gabe Davis. They're trying to throw back shoulders and post to Stephon Diggs. And when the deep shots aren't there, I feel like Josh Allen starts to force things instead of just taking the easy completions underneath or running the ball more. They almost never run the ball, and I think that's another issue.
Well,
And I think it's a matter of being more disciplined for Josh Allen and taking what they give him.
to kind of address that, I don't know if you guys watched the first half of that game, but I felt like the reason why Buffalo was able to come out to a big lead coming into the fourth quarter was because they actually did a good job getting Devin Singletary involved. And like in Buffalo towards the latter portion of the year, it gets as cold as it gets anywhere. And so if they're planning to be as dominant of a team as they need to be, Devin Singletary needs to be a strong piece of it, and he was. But it felt like
In the first half.
exactly, and it felt like what they had, the recipe of solution or whatever they needed to do for the rest of the game was handed to them on a plate, and they were like, you know what, let's try to ease Josh Allen back into throwing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Buffalo does a good job of running their best receiver, Stephon Diggs, on multiple routes that aren't just deep routes. They run him on a lot of short routes. Diggs gets involved in many different kind of pass plays. But I think it honestly boils down to the fact that the Bills' secondary is completely battered up with Micah Hyde's unfortunate injury and Poyer being out. And so it's a constant rotation of guys in their secondary. And it's like their ability to stay ahead in
And
games.
Tre'Davious.
And Trey White's being out for the entire year at this point in time. But it seems that
Top corner, top 5, top 10.
yeah, it seems that their ability to stay ahead is just always alleviated because they just don't seem to run the ball at the right times. It seems that they just they basically just throw the football, lose possessions, and then they just let the Vikings climb back in the game. They let the Jets climb back in the game. And it's like, how are you going to be a top team and you're letting these absolute bum squads? They did the same thing with the Dolphins earlier in the year. I'm pretty sure, I don't know what the score, didn't they beat the Ravens, or was that the Dolphins versus Ravens where it was a massive comeback?
No, they were down like 21-3 against the Ravens, and they came back. The Dolphins beat the Bills. It was like week 3. Yeah. That was when the coach broke his iPad.
Yes.
You guys remember that video?
No. I did just get a fantasy alert. So anybody that has Zach Ertz, he's going to be out for a couple of games. He walked out in a brace. Is supposed to be expected to miss multiple weeks with a knee injury he suffered today. The team does suspect that his ACL is still intact, however, but he will undergo an MRI tomorrow. So he might be out for the year, but they're hoping that his ACL is still intact.
Well, hopefully he's all right.
That is unfortunate.
What I was going to say about Josh Allen is, from what I watched from the game, and I watched the other games too, is I think he has a tendency to get tunnel vision a lot. And he makes a lot of plays on his legs, and he'll, get outside the pocket and make something happen. But it seems like he's just kind of like throwing it up. But 9 times out of 10, when on a passing play, he just tunnel visions on one guy, like he did with Dawson Knox on that interception. He was just staring at him the entire time. Everybody knew he was going to throw it to him.
I'd like to take a moment to realize that Josh has a toothpick in his mouth.
I just ate, sorry.
You're good. It's just something that I was kind of thinking about the entire time. And I was like, it's kind of a...
Yeehaw.
That's an interesting addition, to say the least. But
hey, you mind if Josh and I talk about that Packer game?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we would
Oh,
love
boy.
to hear from the 2 Packers fans how
Amazing.
this game ended.
Josh, you want to start us off?
I would just like to say what a boom Christian Watson was. I bet he wasn't even started in 5% of leagues. And what did he get, like 40 points, nearly?
33, I think.
Yeah. And, so, nobody saw that coming. And I don't know, I just think it was a great game. It was a roller coaster. As a fan, it was a roller coaster of emotions, but I was proud of our offense, but not very proud of our defense. But the Cowboys are a good team on both sides of the ball, so I'm just proud of our guys.
Yeah, so to piggyback off of Josh, I will say I was not a huge believer in Christian Watson up to this point either. And I think Josh and I were actually texting during the game, and at the end of the first quarter, he had 2 drops, and we said, yeah, let's cut him. And he comes back out, and he has like 3 long touchdowns. So I think Watson is one of those guys who's like freaky talented, and he has all the tools, he has the potential. It's just a matter of, is he going to be a glorified deep threat, or can they turn him into like a real number 1 who can run all the routes? And I don't know. I still think he's a bit of a deep threat, but I think if he can catch the ball, they'll, implement him more in the offense and use the full route tree. But I thought Green Bay played pretty well today. I think a big reason was because of Rudy Ford. He had 2 big interceptions. He was a guy that came off the streets. Nobody knew about him a few weeks ago. So that was pretty cool. And, yeah, Green Bay's offense still looked pretty subpar, but they ran the ball well. And Rodgers made the throws that he needed to make, but I still think they have a lot of issues. But we'll see. We'll see. I think it's like a 1 week at a time thing. I don't think you count Green Bay out yet, but I also don't think we're going to say that they're going to make a run. I think we got to see it. If they can go out. Josh, you know who they play next week? Is it Tennessee or Philly?
Tennessee.
Yeah, so
On
if they go out
Thursday night.
Yeah, so if they beat Tennessee next week, then I think we can start at least giving Green Bay a shot. But I still think they're a pretty bad team. I think it was just a little bit lucky playing against Mike McCarthy. Some weird shit happened.
Mm-hmm. It was just a big rivalry too.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy. What a phenomenal head coach that man is. I feel like
He's got good coordinators.
there's really not many good words to talk about that. What's up?
Real quick, back on the Green Bay thing. Yeah, so Josh, how do you feel about Matt as the head coach?
I don't know, man. If you were to ask me last year, I would have said I loved him. But if you ask me this year, he has been doing a lot of questionable things. I mean, like it was a couple minutes left on the clock. It was 3rd and 1, and we decided to throw it. I mean, and Aaron Rodgers even let Matt have it on the sideline. He was like, "What are you doing, bozo?" And he's like, "Why would you call that play?" We have, I mean, AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones were just running through their defenders that whole drive, and then Matt LaFleur's like, "Oh no, let's throw it right now on 3rd and 1," and it's just all kinds of different things that I wouldn't do. And I mean, I'm just a coach couch, but it just seems like obvious things that you wouldn't do, and he's doing them.
I agree, and something that I think is pretty ridiculous, and I think any of you guys could run this team better, at least some aspects of it. What the hell is Green Bay doing with Amari Rodgers? That dude has fumbled the ball, so he has 6 career fumbles on punt returns, and he has 7 career receptions, and he's still the starting punt returner.
Hopefully not after this week.
Well, he fumbled one like 2 weeks ago and 2 weeks before that, and they keep throwing him back out there.
Yeah, but after that last fumble, Nixon took the rest of the punt returns, and hopefully they continue to do that.
Yeah, he's got a nice pop too. Like every time he returns one, especially on the kickoffs, he gets to like a 30.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also like to add into the Green Bay coaching. So they supposedly, Jason's preached this to me for the last 3 years, that Jair Alexander is a top 3, top 5 defensive corner, right? Mm-hmm. And it just seems every single week I should be starting the number 1 fantasy that's facing the Packers because they put Jair on him for maybe 4 snaps. Mm-hmm. And then he also goes off, like CD went off for 38 points. He had 11 receptions on 15 targets for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I'm like, oh, this is their number 1. It's not like CD came into this week being decided to be number 1. So why is the number 1 corner not on him all the time? Diggs wasn't. Like when you guys played the Bills, he was on Diggs for 3 plays. And it's like, Are they afraid that Jair's perfect image is going to be shattered if he's on him for more than 3 plays? Or I'd like to know what dude is operating as the defensive coordinator and how he still owns a job when he can't even put the best matchups on the best matchups. Yep. And you could say zone coverages, yada, yada, yada. At least line him up, shadow him, even if it is a zone coverage.
Yeah. So I'd like to take this one, and I know Josh will have something to say. Joe Barry is, I think, one of the worst defensive coordinators in the NFL, and he really doesn't have a good resume. When he was the last time he was the D coordinator was in Washington, he had the 3rd defense in the entire NFL, and I don't know what year that was. I want to say like 2017, and then he was a linebackers coach for the Rams when they had that great defense. He has not done anything positive to be a defensive coordinator. They have 8 first-round draft picks on that defense. 8. And I actually think that is a record. If you have 8 first-rounders on your defense, you should have a top 3 defense or you should be fired. And they're running this soft zone defense where they're playing off. It's like a bend but don't break mentality. And Jair sits in a zone almost every play, and you're paying him. I think he's the highest paid corner in NFL history.
That's what I was going to say.
And you're paying him that much. It might be Denzel Ward, but I think it's Jair. You're paying him that much money to sit in a hard flat or to sit in a quarter coverage.
Mm-hmm.
When that man, anytime he's in man coverage, besides like a few snaps, he's walking. I was looking at Kate.
Yeah, same here. I was wondering what that man's doing in that pineapple over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like
it's
just like what you said, Jason. It's this whole like bend don't break mentality. They constantly play like there's going to be a 30-yard bomb, like, and it's like we're in the final minutes. It's a tie ball game. They're not going to do anything crazy unless they've just lost their minds. They've proven to us that they're just going to keep on running, and it's like, and Joe Barry's just like, oh, watch for the Hail Mary. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then, I mean, as far as the whole, like, John never playing on the best player, I don't know what that's all about. Like, I really don't. Like, how can you justify paying that man that much and then not even use him to a quarter of his, ability?
And one last thing about Green Bay, and then I'll stop. I think it goes deeper. I think it's a general manager problem. They haven't addressed wide receiver. Even when they had Devontae Adams, those receiving quarters were absolutely terrible. And, like, their number 2 guys, I don't think were even top 60 guys in the NFL. And it's purely irresponsible. They haven't addressed it. And then you get rid of Devontae, and you still don't address it. And anybody know who Quay Walker is in here?
Me?
He's got to be the worst draft pick of the entire year. Green Bay drafted him in the first round. And he was projected to be a 3rd, 4th, 5th round linebacker. Not even the best linebacker on his team in college. And they just signed Devondre Campbell to a $50 million contract. So they drafted a backup middle linebacker in the first round with the pick that they used to trade away Devontae Adams. And Quay Walker's played terribly.
It's like they don't even know who's on the team.
Alrighty.
That's enough of the ranting on Green Bay.
Yeah, thank you. As enjoyable as that was for the Packers, kind of.
It felt good.
I'm glad you guys got that off your chest. I'm going to pass that along to the 2 other teams that happen to have fans here.
What does that sound? Somebody in a grocery store?
Not my bad. I turned on my computer volume. I was trying to switch over.
Yeah, I heard.
I'll cut in real quick.
Yeah. Let's let Cade hop in for a second because he's just been munching at his pineapple.
It'll be a quick summary. Great win for the Steelers today, right here. And that'll probably be the 3 out of 4 wins they get this year. All right.
Can we talk about how Kenny Pickett looked today and how an NFL Youngboy looked today?
I mean, they look pretty good. I mean, Saints are kind of on a little bit of a skid. I think at the beginning of the year, people were like, "Oh wow, the Saints are pretty good," but I think as of late, they've kind of gone a little bit of a downhill skid and losing, and injuries and stuff like that have definitely hurt them. But Steelers I think they got TJ back, didn't they? They got TJ Watt back.
TJ came back.
So I think that made a big difference for them. I think he's a huge difference maker for us, for the Steelers. Pass rush and whatnot. But I think Kenny Pickett looked pretty good. I think he's continuing to grow. I think it's just going to be that year for him where he just gains experience and just kind of goes through his year as best he can. And Najee had just kind of like I would say probably average performance fantasy wise too. I think he looked good. I think he had a lot of, rushed the ball well. But still, I think fantasy wise, he still can just continues to only put up 9 to 12 points. And that's about it. So as fantasy goes, it's not great. But yeah, besides that, Pickens looks decent. I think that was a cool little rushing touchdown for them. And I think he continues the same thing as Pickett. He will just continue to gain experience, and it's kind of just a year for the Steelers to kind of build their team. A lot of young talent. So yeah.
Doesn't help fantasy people when when the Steelers can't score outside of 8 yards.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the worst in scoring from outside the red zone. They have to be within the 10-yard line to score.
yeah,
Yeah.
the touchdowns today were a 1 yard run and a 1 yard run.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, what it does amaze me, and I think it's just the coaching staff, I would say, for us, as is probably the opposite of what I've heard from the Green Bay fans here is coaching. I mean, defensively is phenomenal almost every year. We somehow continue to make games close with our defense playing well, and so thankfully we have a good defense. It keeps us in some games. We end up losing most of them, at least this year, but in years past too, we win some games when our defense keeps us in it. So.
Gotcha. Well, I'm gonna pass this off to Dak since you probably watched the Browns game today.
Yeah, it was on.
Yeah, so I'll let you kind of summarize what you happen to witness in that game.
I mean, it's the freaking Dolphins. I mean, what do you expect? The Dolphins are just too good right now. I mean, adding Jeff Wilson at the trade deadline was just ridiculous for him. Mm-hmm. And I mean, running the ball didn't look good hot. I mean, at one point, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt were both minus points on fantasy. So that never looks good when you sit there. Luckily, Nick Chubb ended up getting up to, I think, like 15.7 points, which isn't bad. But, I mean, as a Browns fan, you know what you're going to expect. At least you can just always let yourself down. And if something good happens, then you're feeling good. But, I mean, that game's just rough. The Browns just rough, and I mean, yeah, we're getting back to Deshaun Watson, but I'm worried. He's not going to do anything.
Why do you think it was that Nick Chubb couldn't run or didn't run well? Because usually the Miami run defense isn't that great.
Yeah,
it's middle of the road.
I think they had it diagnosed. That's what the Browns are going to do. You have Jacoby Brissett in your backfield. You know that the team is going to run the ball. You have Nick Chubb, who's averaging the most yards per run right now, and you know what's coming. And it almost looked like they kept sending 5 each play. And the minute they saw that it was a run, everybody's right there.
Yeah.
So you have Amari Cooper as the one wide receiver, and his side piece is Peoples-Jones. Great. Woo. That's going to do great things when you don't really have that good of a quarterback. And I don't expect Deshaun Watson to step in and do any better.
Right.
Especially after watching him preseason.
Do you think he creates more of a threat running the ball?
He looked too scared. Preseason, he didn't run.
Yeah.
Preseason, he didn't do anything. Everybody was so hyped to see him finally play football again, to see what he could do as a Browns fan. You wanted to see what he could do, as we just paid him a ridiculous amount of money, which it's going to bite the Browns in the butt. That was the stupidest contract ever. And he sat out for 11 games, and he's going to come in, and watching him preseason, unless something has changed, he can create a threat, but I don't think he knows what to do with it, as he sat out for 2 years.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how he does, not playing for 2 years and all that.
Following that,
I'd like to talk about that real quick, Austin.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so I think, I don't think it matters like how people feel about Deshaun Watson off the field. If we want to talk about morals and stuff and what the Browns did making the trade, that's another topic. But yeah. But as far as Deshaun Watson, the player, that dude's an elite quarterback. And I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, he was a top 5 quarterback, at least in my opinion, but I think a lot of people would agree, and I think the film and the stats would justify that, before the whole issue with the massages. But
Yeah, the whole issue
But,
that happened with
no,
massages,
I
huh?
Yeah. But anyways, Dak, I'm saying is I think you should have a lot of hope because you're getting an elite quarterback or borderline elite, and he's still relatively young. What is he, 26, 27?
Yeah.
Yeah, so as long as he doesn't have any more off-the-field issues or distractions, I think it's going to really pay off. You guys have a pretty good team, and I think the culture in Cleveland is turning around a bit. And I think in order to win a Super Bowl in this era, you have to have an elite quarterback, or at least like a top 10 guy.
Yep.
So like back to Nick Chubb. Now looking at this and finally seeing exactly how many times he ran the ball. They ran the ball 24 times. How many do you think went to Nick Chubb?
22.
11.
Why?
Because they were
Exactly.
trailing the entire game.
7 runs. Seven
You
of
think
those
they were
runs
scared to hurt him?
were 7 of those runs were by Brissett.
Hmm.
Nick Chubb actually had 11 carries for 63 yards. He averaged 5.7 yards per carry.
You kind of have to change up your you kind of have to change up your game script when you're down when you're facing the Dolphins and you're not putting up constant you're not putting up constant scoring. You can't really be as a run dominant team as you usually are. You kind of have to depend a little bit on the throws, and you could make the argument that the Bears didn't do that, but the Bears were continuously keeping score with the Dolphins, so they were able to play their own game. But since the Browns,
but the Browns are down 10-30 going into the fourth quarter. Nick Chubb, minute and 51 seconds in, 33-yard touchdown run.
I'm not disagreeing with the fact that Nick Chubb should be your first option. I think
Nick Chubb's attempts and chances that he has had to run the ball has gone down tremendously.
I think
That's why you see all the Browns fans saying run the ball in the stands.
Right. That's what we say here at Ohio State too. And we see what happens when we actually run the damn ball.
So, Dak, question for you. What was he averaging when he was running the ball today?
He averaged 5.7.
Okay, so that's just coaching because you have no
Right.
Njoku's out. You don't have Jarvis Landry anymore. So your only option really is Amari Cooper, who's I don't know, what is he at this point? A top 15 receiver? Maybe. And you have the offensive line and the running backs to run the ball, and you have Jacoby fucking Brissett as your quarterback. Run the damn ball.
Yep.
Seems that we're all on the same line of thought that the Browns, in order for the Browns' success story, it's going to be them dominating the ground, and I just don't understand why they went away from it and that they got outrushed by the Dolphins of any team of sort. But that, as you said, it was just a poor game script that the Browns came up with, and they thought that they could throw their way back into the game, and they quite literally threw the game away. So it's just an unfortunate week, and obviously if you're watching film next week and you're looking at the statistics, the Browns are going to be like, yeah, maybe we should stick with our number one guy. But you also have to take into fact that without his 33-yard run, Nick Chubb ran for 10 for what, 34, 35?
Yeah.
So that's 3.5 per carry, which isn't good either. So it's it's kind of inflated by the one outlier of a run. So it's can you necessarily blame all of that? But I'm not going to read too much into that because I kind of want to tackle the other games and kind of talk about the highlights of other games, because I feel like we've been just so solely focused on the teams that we actually like. So I'm going to talk first about the Chiefs-Jaguars game. Patrick Mahomes threw for 3 or 4 touchdowns today.
3 touchdowns, 350 yards.
Yeah. He threw for 4 touchdowns. So Patrick Mahomes' stats
Oh, shit.
were 26 for 35 for 331 with 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. Pacheco took a majority of the runs today, which is no surprise because Clyde Edwards is literally trash, and I'm pretty sure he's out. But if he's not out, he is not out. He's just sorry. So Clyde Edwards has given up his sole role of being the dominant rusher for that team to Isaiah Pacheco, even though Isaiah Pacheco did fumble early on in that game.
Yeah, I don't feel too good about Pacheco.
I feel like that's not. He runs really.
He's
really
fast.
No,
He's a
he
rookie,
runs
so,
hard.
I mean,
Like, he's willing to run straight at people, take that strong contact, and it's like something that Clyde seems like. Clyde really runs like a scat back. He tries to jump away from everybody. He tries to dodge tackles, but Pacheco's just downhill. He knows that
yeah.
they need north-south. They don't need east-west. They have so many playmakers, and he doesn't need to be the only one to go east-west. And so I think his addition to being the primary back was a great pickup, especially him just being a rookie.
Yeah, definitely. He's
but-
young.
Oh yeah.
It's better than Clyde, but I don't know.
I mean, who else could they? I don't know when the running backs went off the board, but yeah, they could have possibly gotten Kenneth Walker. They could have gotten there's probably other guys.
I mean, it's just not I don't know. I just it's not that I think that they should be playing someone different. It's just that I'm just not too high on him. I don't think he's going to be I don't think he's a solid flex option. I don't think he's going to be that guy this year.
Oh, okay. If you're talking about
No.
fantasy output per se,
Right.
I don't disagree with that. I think as time will continue, he will slowly creep into flex, and then he might make his way to running back too, because the Chiefs always score, and they love running random design on the goal line.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he will find the end zone come the later portion of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he
was
could have a big year too if they stick with him.
Yeah,
he was a dynasty pick for me, and I put him on my taxi squad. I think he'll develop into something. I'm honestly surprised it was this already his rookie year that he's getting the lead back role. I thought CEH would have been more involved still.
Yeah, and then of no surprise, the leading receiver on that team is Travis Kelce. 6 receptions, 80 yards and a touchdown, 81 yards, and it's no surprise. That seems to be a common theme in Kansas City, that everybody and their mom will touch the football, but the guy who will touch it the most will always be Travis Kelce. And then for Jaguars side,
Wait, go just quickly. Is Juju?
I'll let you talk about what happened with Juju.
Well, he got absolutely cracked, and he's probably will be in concussion protocol. Well, he is in concussion protocol, but he'll probably be sitting out next week, I would imagine, with under concussion protocol. He was on the ground, knocked out, stiff body from that hit. So that'll be a loss for Juju fantasy, holders. So
Yeah, and it's also kind of a
Yeah.
loss for Kansas City because he was quote unquote their number one receiver.
yeah, the last couple weeks leading up to this week, he was definitely their go-to wide receiver besides Kelce. And then I guess, who was also out? Wasn't Hardman out this week?
Yeah, McCole Hardman was out.
Yeah,
and then,
he was also. I guess they were fighting. over who would be their number one.
Kadarius Toney stepped up today, though.
so did
Yeah.
MVS,
Yeah.
which you guys know all about, don't you? But kind of sidestepping to the Jaguars, the main takeaway was Trevor Lawrence went 29 for 40 for 259 and 2 touchdowns. And he was honestly, I don't know if you guys watched that game or if you were watching Red Zone, there was a lot of times where he was rolling out and he was using his legs more often than I anticipated. And it kind of demonstrates that he has a lot more athleticism than people kind of grant to him. But it's also he should not be running as frequently as he was today. It just looked like he was running.
Block punt. My bad. Niners just blocked the punt.
What do you say?
I said Niners just blocked the punt.
Of course they did.
Nice.
Where did they recover
Or
it?
my bad. Other way around. Chargers blocked the punt.
That's a that's just
Are
completely
do they got good field position?
Yeah, very good. 30-yard line.
okay. That's gonna be we'll talk about that at the end because I feel like we should kind of just talk about what's happened. Hopefully we'll catch up to that by halftime, and so we can
No,
hop in.
I was just excited.
But ETN did not have a Travis Etienne kind of day. I think he might have put up 10 total points, and that was mainly
Yeah.
carried halfway through his receiving and his receptions.
But
But
it's
11,
because they fell behind, but
yeah, exactly. The game script didn't allow for it to be a run dominant game like the Jaguars have usually been able to put up. But
yeah.
Travis ran for 11 for 45, and they had a total of 16 touches for 75 for the entire Jaguar roster, compared to the Chiefs, who ran for 27 total rushes and 155 yards. So like, you can already kind of delegate and kind of tell who had the ownership of the line through offense and defense today.
Yeah.
But receiving, this was the real fantasy output. There was two players that were real takeaways from today. It was Patrick Mahomes, which was to be expected. He was predicted to be one of the top quarterbacks this week. And Christian Kirk, who had 9 receptions for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, there's really not much else you can talk about. Christian Kirk is like, he's been the sleeper receiver 1 for, I wouldn't say for the Jaguars, but for a lot of people's teams, or receiver 2. And he's been a massive player for a lot of people's teams. And it's like, for you to get paid the amount of money he got over this offseason to be signed for the Jags, you were anticipating a lot, but even people who were anticipating a lot would not have expected this kind of output that he's been getting. And so it's good to see that he was getting a good amount of receptions. And then Zay Jones followed right behind him with 8 receptions for 68 yards. And then there really wasn't much else behind that. But those were like your two notable names from the fantasy output. Moving on away from that, we had the Texans versus the Giants, which I can tell you already off the top of my head, the dominant person in this was who we kind of expected, which was Saquon Barkley. Saquon ran for 35 attempts, which is an absurd amount, 152 yards and a touchdown. But that's to be kind of
two.
Well, yeah, and he could have had 2. But it's like, the normal takeaway is, if you are facing the Texans, your running back's going to go off. Derrick Henry does it. Saquon does it. It's a premium matchup for the running backs. There's not really much else to talk about. Danny Dimes, putting up a Danny Dimes statistics, 13 for 17 for 197 yards and 2 touchdowns, which I think is a pretty good game for Daniel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
But Darius Slayton he had that massive 60-something yard touchdown where a play broke down. He caught a ball. It seems that somebody scored. Who scored, Jay?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, nobody. It looked like it was going to be a touchdown. Herbert threw it to. Give me a second. Showing the replay. I want to say, was it Palmer?
What number?
Yeah, Palmer.
Number
And,
5.
No, Carter.
Number 1.
He got down to like the 2-yard line. He got tackled.
Sounds like an Austin Eckler rushing touchdown. I'm hearing right now.
Give it a second. Let's see. They're about to run the play. 2-yard line right now.
Oh.
Eckler's not in.
Do they have
Play
Joshua
action.
Kelly?
And incomplete. No, he was looking for the tight end, but it was incomplete.
Gerald Everett.
Yeah. No, actually not Everett. Number 88. I think it's that guy that's like 6'7" or 6'8".
Okay, their backup tight end.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Okay, here we go. Eckler's in now.
I'm feeling an Austin Eckler, either like a throw to him out in the flats or a handoff, something.
I'm thinking like a toss.
You think a toss to the outside?
Motion.
I think a stretch.
Oh, okay. So they threw a flag, but it was going to be a toss.
What?
To the right.
Of course. But
Anyway, if you want to continue, I'll update you because now they're at like the 7th. So
gotcha.
probably not going to score.
On the Texans side of the ball, Davis Mills had a pretty solid day statistically, 22 for 37, obviously not a great completion percentage, but 319 yards, a touchdown and interception. And then Dameon Pierce is continuing to put up a phenomenal rookie performance, 17 for 94. And everybody is kind of high praising Kenneth Walker, but I feel like a lot of the praise should really be going to Dameon Pierce.
I think he should be the offensive rookie of the year.
That's where I agree. I
Agree.
I feel like with the lineups you have, like, don't get me wrong, Seattle sucks equally as much as the Texans do, and Seattle's made quite a turnaround. But I think Dameon Pierce just runs so. it's so entertaining. I don't know if you guys watched when he faced the Jags and he broke through 10 tackles. He had like that 30-yard run. It was probably one of the sickest runs I've ever witnessed in my life. He ran full beast mode, threw people over his shoulders. He was just absolutely dogging.
Yeah, he's going to be a beast for
Wide
years.
receivers?
What'd you say?
Who are the Texans wide receivers?
Brandon
Nobody.
Cooks,
My point exactly. So like you have
Nico Collins.
Seattle who has
You always
Lockett.
take this one?
You have Seattle who has Lockett and Metcalf with options, and you have Houston who has nothing but running the football, and he continues to put up like 75 plus yards every single time on the field.
Wasn't he like a
Yeah,
super
to
late
answer your
draft pick too?
question-
Yeah,
Yeah.
in Florida. What were you saying, Jay?
To answer your question about the receivers on the Texans, yes, they have. I know they have Cooks. They have OJ Howard as their tight end.
Nico
who-
Collins.
Yeah, Nico Collins. He's actually pretty. I think he's been pretty
Yeah.
solid. And then the one guy who I'm actually fascinated to see, but I believe he got like I want to say it was like leukemia before the year
John
started,
Mechie.
was John Mechie, because he was pretty good at Bama.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see what he can do, but sounds like we're gonna have to wait a year to see what happens. And it's just a cool story.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're ready to draft a guy like Bryce Young. I don't think they have the offensive line or the weapons yet, but they probably will.
They might though. I mean, if Damian Pierce has got all this running space, and I don't know if it's just Damian Pierce's ability, but it seems like they are able to run the ball a little bit. So
I'm curious because I haven't really watched many Texans games, so I can't.
yeah,
I don't want to speak on it.
Anybody has.
Yeah. But is he like a fantasy? Is he more of a fantasy guy, kind of like Myles Gaskin was, and kind of James Robinson was, or is he actually like legit as a running back?
He
I think
is.
he's legit.
He's legit. Like
Good.
he runs strong. The Texans. As I told you, I think he got the ball. He had a 5.5 average today, and like
Wow.
that's not something that you normally hear from a guy who's basically expected to run. That's like having Derrick Henry run for 6 yards when you don't have Ryan Tannehill and you don't have, well, I guess that's separate because Derrick Henry is kind of a freak of nature. But
And you have one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL.
exactly. But Davis Mills, I have to give praise. He honestly looks okay. He doesn't look like completely garbage as you would anticipate. So it allows.
Like a game manager.
Yeah, well, he's like a budget game manager because they don't win games.
yeah.
But like
He's
in
like
the
Alex
term,
Smith after all the injuries.
that's a terrible comparison, but yes. But moving along, because I don't know if there's any time to better segue away from that than that point. But I'm not even going to talk about the Broncos Titans because I don't think anybody is worthwhile to talk about in this entire game other than Jerry Jeudy getting injured on a deep ball. Cortland Sutton had an inadequate game. I think we talked about how Cortland Sutton had 11 targets and only 6 receptions, which is obviously not very good, but it's also Russell Wilson throwing it to him, so that could inflate the target total.
Yeah.
But, and then on the Titans side, I think Nick Westbrook had a phenomenal game. But if you guys
Who
didn't
ended
even,
up winning that game?
the Titans, and they won 17-10. If you could tell me who Nick Westbrook was before we started this game, I'd give you a crisp high 5.
Is he number 15?
I don't even know what number he is. He's 2 last names.
I could be totally off.
Man's got 2 last names.
So I do want to touch one point on that game. What do you guys think of Russell Wilson? I personally think that I still think he's pretty good. I still think he's like a top 10 quarterback. I don't think he's like what he used to be, but that man has no help, at least from a play call standpoint. And his weapons are pretty solid. He has Sutton, he has Jeudy. Obviously, he doesn't have Javonte Williams anymore, but he had Noah Fant, obviously, or he never did, but the Broncos did. But he has guys. And I think the Broncos have a problem with their offensive line, and I think that it's just the coaching. Nathaniel Hackett. I love Hackett. He came from Green Bay. He was our OC, and I thought he was a really, really good offensive coordinator. But as a head coach, that man has been nothing but a problem. His clock management's been horrible. Just a lot of issues. But I think Russ is getting a lot of the blame. And yeah, he's missing throws and he's not doing things great. But I don't think he's washed. I guess that's my question. Do you guys think he's washed, or do you think he?
It's because they gave him all that money, and he's playing like worse than Matt Ryan. You know.
Yeah.
Statistically wise.
I agree with that as well. To kind of add on,
They
to
gave
that.
him a ton of money.
Yeah. To add on to that,
Is he the
point-
highest paid player in the NFL right now?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think Patty still got to
per
be.
year or overall. I think per year is Stafford.
Yeah.
But my issue with Russell Wilson is it like you could say a lot about the scheme. You could say a lot about like him having like poor calls and stuff like that. But I feel like if I was 5 feet away from Jason, I could complete a higher percentage than Russell Wilson can right now. And it's kind of concerning to me. It seems like the balls that he used to be able to throw on a dime, it seemed like you might be like, I feel like Russell Wilson to me has always been a guy who's been able to scramble out and kind of throw to spots well and kind of find guys where they need to be. But he's always kind of been a prayer thrower. And it's like, I feel like that's kind of getting more exposed as time goes on. Like, he doesn't have the spot throwing that he used to have, and he doesn't have the guys he used to have to receive the ball. Even though, like, Cortland Sutton and Jerry Judy are both great receivers, like, he could just throw a fucking prayer up. And I remember, what's his name? Doug Baldwin would just jump up and catch a prayer thrown to him. Tyler Lockett would just fly under a ball and just be there. It just seems like the amount of communication and, like, the chemistry he once has drives his ability to throw more than like his actual arm talent.
Yep.
Okay, so Hall of Famer, yes or no? Would you call him a Hall of Famer at this point?
Well, they won a Super Bowl, and he's had a lot of really good seasons.
He's won multiple Super Bowls, hasn't he?
I think he went to two and only won one. They lost that one because they didn't
The
use
Patriots.
Marshawn Lynch and
Yeah.
Malcolm Butler.
I forgot about that.
With the
That's
yearly
the worst
salary,
moment in sports history, honestly.
with the yearly
Only Tom
salary,
Brady won that Super Bowl.
Rodgers is the highest for this year at 50 million. Second highest would be Russell Wilson at 49 million.
How did I forget
Yeah, I
about
think so.
Rodgers? Yeah, of course it's him.
I think the thing about Rodgers though, it's not a real 50 million. It's a bunch of like dead cap.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think he's actually making like this year. I want to say he's making like 25 million, but it's like they're pushing it down the road. It's like
They're
a bunch of
back-ending
void
the
years.
contract.
Exactly, and then they're void years, so they don't even have to count them. So everybody, like I know a lot of experts like Colin Cowherd, he's always like, "Oh, he's getting paid 50 million a year. That's why they can't get a wide receiver." And I'm just like, that's not true because Green Bay has one of the highest cap spaces in the league right now.
Yeah, in the thing it
Cap.
says it's just guaranteed money is what it's going off of. So
Oh,
like you
okay,
said,
yeah,
it might not be all up front or whatever. It might, but
Yeah,
it just says So
I feel
He
like
does like his money.
I feel like
Yeah.
that's going to be something that we can kind of talk on in this podcast in future days, is a lot about front ending and back ending contracts, because I feel like that's not really talked about enough, notably because teams are starting to do that a lot more. Travis Kelce front ended his contract because they were trying to I think they were guaranteeing him a boatload of money this year so they could try to pick up like OBJ. And I remember because I overheard when Jason and Travis were talking on their podcast on New Heights, they were talking about how he got paid a bunch of money guaranteed up front. And it's like front ending and back ending contracts is like the NFL's way of finessing the system to allow them to have more cap space in a certain year. And I feel like that doesn't get enough notable kind of talking. And I feel like that's going to be a great talking point in the offseason. Like with all these
who
teams.
started that?
What'd you say?
I said, do you know which team started that?
If I had to take a wild guess, it's probably the team that's on your beanie.
No. Green Bay doesn't do that. They are the most conservative team in the NFL. It was actually the Saints years back, and they made like a giant contract with Taysom Hill. I don't remember how much money it was, but Taysom Hill, they were going to pay him basically like anywhere from 30 to 50 million a year to be their starting quarterback. But it was a fake contract just so they could open up a bunch of cap space. I don't know exactly how that works, but that's how. Because remember, you guys remember a few years ago they were like 100 million under the cap,
No.
and they somehow got out of it, and they were signing more players. Yeah, they were 100 million under the cap, and everybody's like, "Oh, they're done." And then the next year they bring back Thomas, they bring back Kamara, they sign Lattimore. Yeah. So the cap situation, I think cap space is fake, obviously to an extent, but.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be such a notable thing we're going to have to talk about over in this offseason is going to be like how teams are manipulating the cap space and how many acquisitions are going to be made along that pretense. But I'm just watching the game as we're talking as well, and San Francisco's in the red zone right now. Where I'm at, it's currently second down, and they just called a timeout. I'm assuming it might be different, but they haven't scored because I get updates for every score as well. And so
What's the time?
that is a great question. Chris Collinsworth and Mike are currently talking on my screen, so unfortunately I cannot tell you the time. But
Do you have second and goal, Austin?
yeah,
Yeah. It should be 2:30 something.
left in the second, right?
Yeah, I think they might run out of. I'm a little behind you, so they might run out of time here on a play call or something.
They called a timeout.
Hey, a
They
little
called
bit
it-
off topic. I just got a funny text from my dad. He texted me and he goes, "Did you see the Packer game?" And I said, "Yeah, it ended like 3 hours ago." And he goes, "Oh," he goes, "I was coming back from your your half grandpa's 802nd birthday." So I'm guessing that was a typo, but I thought that was pretty funny.
Step grandma.
802nd birthday today.
She's been around the block for many generations of your family.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, yeah. it's been
She
a while.
settled this country.
Still hanging in there.
She was actually
Josh, what do you have going on there?
What do I got going on here?
yeah.
You got something in your mouth? You got something in your hand?
Oh, sorry. I know I'm a fidgeter. I'm the worst.
Oh no, you're good. I was asking what it was. I gotta get one.
Oh, it's just it's a cord, like a micro USB.
I've been taking this off my remote for the past hour.
I just want to point out the fact that Dak his Wi-Fi went out like 20 to 30 minutes ago, and his internet has not been able to get him to connect back since then.
Rest in peace, that man.
So, if anybody was wondering what happened
Rough day
to
for him.
our new sixth man of the year, he is his internet died out on him. And then Alex was supposed to join, but it seems that Ohio State University homework for his class is taking the best of him. So we will be getting him back Tuesday, ideally. We don't know. He's currently day to day, but we'll be seeing if he's going to be off the injury list by Tuesday night.
Did you say Dak was a teammate of Justin Fields, or did I mishear that?
You definitely misheard that.
Okay. So when I first joined the podcast, all I heard was Dak say, "Former teammate of mine, Justin Fields, went off today." And I was like, "What?"
No, he said former teammate of Akuda. So,
Oh, okay, yeah. Sure. That makes a lot more sense.
yeah, because they played together. There's the context to that. But
Yeah, I kind of thought it was like, I don't know. I didn't know if Dak was like a
Dak is a golfer.
second string punter for Ohio State or something.
No, Dak does not have it on like he does not have that in him. He does not have that sort of dog in him by any shape
Yeah.
or form. But
Well,
that was kind of a general recap of Sunday. Do we have any other
Yeah.
talking points that anybody would like to kind of highlight on, or do we want to kind of wrap up talking about the game? What's kind of a game
Was
plan?
there anything in that Colts game, the Colts and Vegas game?
Um,
I mean, Josh
Jonathan Taylor. ran really
Jacobs
well.
had a pretty good game.
Both the running backs had
yeah,
a
I
great.
think we talked about that before you got on.
Oh,
We
okay.
did.
My bad.
I guess maybe the one that is the
No,
Cardinals
you're good.
Rams that we didn't go over, but we can talk about that Tuesday if you want to just give something else to talk about.
Yeah,
I'd just like to say Cooper Kupp had 3 points.
Yeah, he got hurt.
yeah.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah, I just got the alert that
Jimmy
says
G.
he avoided the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Jimmy G just scored, as Jason said. So anybody who has CMC on their roster, you can just take a fat, just fuck kind of breath right now.
I feel that right now.
I do too. And so you're
Yeah.
just like, well,
I got both, so
you have Jimmy G.
What did he pass it or run it in?
He ran it in. It was a QB. It was a good old 92%.
I'm not too worried because my opponent did not fit his lineup. He had like
W.
4 guys on a bye week.
Actually, let's finish off on a little bit of a fantasy summarization of where we're sitting right now. How we looking in our leagues today?
Who wants to start, Josh?
I'll start. Yeah. The league that me and Jason are in, I just barely. I mean, Aaron Rodgers really pulled through for me. He didn't go too crazy, but he gave me just enough to take the lead. And then in my other league, I did well as I did good too, but that my opponent still got AJ Brown left to play, Gibson left to play, and Miles Sanders. So I think I'm toast. But I had Christian Kirk who went crazy. Aaron Rodgers had a pretty good game. Who else did good for me? Pollard had a pretty good game, but yeah, I think overall I did pretty well.
Later, Jay. Oh, Kate, you can kind of take from there.
So yeah, one of my leagues that I've almost given up on has just not gone my way. Another just did not start the right players this week, so that was fantastic to watch. And then in another one, is solid. I'd say nothing too great to talk about. I think the one I just want to highlight is in the regular league that me and Austin are in. Looking pretty good. Projected to put up 170 points this week. Kirk Cousins, who if he just didn't throw as many picks as he did, would have a strong fantasy showing, but still put up 17 points. And then I had James Conner, who gave me 23. Devontae Adams gave me 27. Michael Pittman gave me 12 at least. Kelsey with 20. Rondale Moore with 18 as one of my flexes, which is a great start for me. And then Mozart, who got in the end zone, gave me, is that 18 as well? So yeah, 2 flex options giving me 18 points, which is nice. And then my kicker, Bass, gave me 13 points today. So pretty solid week for me on that one. That's about it.
You want me to go, Austin, or you want to take over?
You can continue.
Okay, so my team this week, a little bit disappointing from the running backs. Kenneth Walker at 13, that was the best. And then McCaffrey is only at 5.5 right now, 5.6. And Etienne had 10, so nothing crazy. But I took Austin's advice and I picked Fields over Hurts this week, and that paid off. He had 40, or 39. And, and then Godwin had 19. He had his typical 6 catches for 70, but he had a touchdown today. Hopkins had 10 for 98, so he got me 20. And then tight end got me 2 points. Defense, kicker got me 11 combined. But I like my team going forward. I think today was a pretty good day for projected for 132 and the win.
To kind of finish off, I have way too many fantasy teams, so I'll just kind of give you a rundown on the overall record and then kind of tell you about the booms and the busts. So right now I'm projected to go 3-2. My 2 losses were unfortunately because Justin Fields happened to be somebody I was facing against, and the other person's team was just stacked head to toes, and my receivers just did not have a good enough day. But to kind of give you the booms, I have Justin Fields in one of my leagues as well, so that 40 point was a massive help. In one of the leagues that I'm projected to win in, Austin Eckler and Christian McCaffrey obviously aren't doing much right now, but JD, who one of our buddies, he happens to have the most bum squad going this week, so it was kind of a free win, and I'm very appreciative of that. Other than that, that's kind of a general summary. I don't really want to go in depth on 5 different teams. It's just too much information. So taking away 3 wins out of 2 and my teams all still being above 500 by the end of this week is going to be a massive W in my books. Something I'm happy about. And the money will still be possibly going into my pocket by the end of the year. And that's all I care about. So that was kind of a general summarization.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, so I feel like we've kind of hit.
Tuesday.
Yeah, we've kind of hit a good ending for where we're at. If you guys would like to tune back in on Tuesday, we're going to be running a similar stream style where we're just going to throw this stream up on YouTube. And we're going to talk about our previous waiver wire talks, just simple kind of idea of who we talked about last Tuesday, how they ended up panning out, talking about matchups more in depth, and then talk about the future week. And then we're going to talk about our future picks for this upcoming week, being waiver players, our boom and our busts. And then we're going to start tracking from there our records from that point on. So I'll kind of give more of a rundown on Tuesday. I'm going to pull up like the Excel and or the sheets that we're going to be kind of going more in depth on, kind of explain that through, and then kind of give the audience a good idea of what we're talking about. But other than that, I think today was a pretty good recap day. It was a great kind of trial day for Sunday, and I feel like it's a good step in the right direction. But come Tuesday and come next Sunday, I feel like we kind of need to brief out like an outline for how we want to do, get a little more informed as a group, and then kind of tackle that when that day comes. But yeah,
Sounds good.
I think it was a good day. I appreciate anybody who did stop in to the stream, and that's going to be it. So yeah.